Hello, everybody, and welcome to section 3 of chapter 1, the environment and sustainability. And section 3 is called Why Do Environmental Problems Persist? What causes them and why do they persist? Because we know that there are problems in the environment. We know that they need to be fixed, but it looks like we're having so much trouble fixing them. Okay, we know that the world is wrong. We know that things are going bad, but we need to fix it. And here's this section goes over why it's so difficult to fix all these problems. All right, so um, the environmental and social scientists, the people who study this stuff, have come up with about 5 different reasons that the world is having the trouble they are. And the first major reason, we're going to cover all 5 of these in the lesson, so it's a little long. The first is population growth. Okay, there are way too many people for the amount of resources we have. That's why we have such a hard time with the haves and the have-nots. We'll go into some more of this. Unsustainable resource use. Okay, it's bad enough that we've got so many people to try to feed. We are not using our resources wisely enough in order to spread them the right way, and also in order to make them stay long enough for the further coming up generations. The next one is the poverty. All 3 of these are related. Okay, the poverty has to do with, I mean, if you are scrounging for your next meal, you're not going to really care how green or ungreen the world is. All right, if you're scrounging for your next meal, you can care less for all this stuff. So poverty is one of the also main problems. Lack of full cost pricing, and that they're all related to one another. So the lack of full cost pricing, I'll go in a second. It has to do with the big boss companies ruining the world. Okay, we'll talk about that. And then the increasing isolation from nature. We've already had a little worksheet on this right at the beginning. So we'll talk all about all of these. All right, so, and again, sorry my screen is in front of some of the words, but you should already have your notes filled out. So you watched the PowerPoint that was plain, right? You were supposed to watch the PowerPoint that was all by itself so that you could fill out your notes, and then you're reading that PowerPoint as you watch me do this one. Okay, so these should already be filled out, so the fact that they're covered up shouldn't matter too much. All right, so the human population is growing. It's huge, all right? At 2015, when your book was written, there were 7.3 billion people on the earth, and every year we add 89 million more. Okay, so at 7.3 in 2015, we've added 89 million every year since then. And so the projected 2050 rate of the world population is 9.8 billion. And again, I've said this before, but all of our long-term models, when they're trying to figure things out, all of our long-term models come up empty when we try to figure out how we're going to feed that many people. All right, so if you have enough people going hungry, you're going to start having resource wars. And that's the kind of stuff they make apocalyptic movies out of. All right, so that's what we're looking at. All right, so slowing down the population growth could limit the severe environmental degradation. The fact that the earth can't keep up with us, the earth can't make enough food for us. If we stopped having so many of us, maybe the earth could heal herself. All right, so the aim is by 2050 not to hit 9.8 billion because we can't feed that many. We need to slow down and at 2050 only be at 8 billion. All right, and then if we continue to maintain that or even decrease, okay, maybe the earth can heal. All right, so if we are able to hold at 2050 8 billion, we might make it, but if we hit 9.8, we're done for. All right. So in order to that, we need to promote economic development, family planning, elevated status for women. Now we're going to get into that, and it sounds like I'm being sexist. But if women are in a culture where they are nothing but baby machines, then in their culture, them being a good woman means having lots of babies. Well, that's not going to help the earth at all. She needs to become more than a baby factory. She needs to have her own worth, her own self. And we'll talk about that as we get into there. Okay, now this is a lot of small writing, but this talks about exponential growth. And so a lot of you guys have done um, ideas with exponential growth when you did biology because they covered a good section of this. So most of you guys already know the basics of what happens, and that's what that is. This is the basics of explaining exponential growth. What's happening is that it's not just times 2 every time it increases, it's times itself. All right, so it gets huge, and you can read through that, but it's crazy. It's also called a J-shaped curve. If you remember from biology, it's this because it looks like a J there. All right, so the human population has been growing exponentially. Okay, that J-shaped curve. In 2015, the growth rate was 1.2%. That doesn't sound like a lot, okay, but it really, really is. All right, so as the result, today there's more than 73 billion on Earth, 89 million added every year. And here's what we're talking about here. If we do hit 9.8 billion, okay, we can't feed them all, okay? Um, that is a projected addition of 25 billion people, okay, which is more than 8 times the US and China, okay? That's a lot. We're already the biggest groups. So nobody knows how many people the Earth can support indefinitely. We don't know the average amount of resources it's going to take to feed us all. But our large and expanding ecological footprint um, means that the widespread natural capital degradation is going to be continue to get worse. So scientists argue that the people can reduce the severe degradation by slowing the population. As I said, we can't deal at 9.8. Okay, by 2050, if we're at 9.8, we're dead meat. We need to slow down. Okay, by 2050, if we're at 8 billion instead of 9.8, okay, we might make it. And some of the things, the ways to reduce the poverty through economic development. Again, we said poor people don't care about being green. All right, promote family planning and elevate the status of women. So when you are the this last slide, it won't go backwards, but this last slide said that reducing poverty is one of the ways to end environmental degradation. But the trouble is, when you're too rich, there's also a lot of environmental degradation. Deal with that. You know that the U.S. is one of the worst exploiters of the earth. Okay, we're one of the ones who are, we're supposed to be taking good care of the earth, but we don't really. All right, the affluence, the lifestyles of the rich and famous, all right, means a higher level of resource consumption. Imagine, think about when you, those rich people, those fancy restaurants, all that stuff that they throw away, like they're done with it. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that stuff, and they're throwing it away just because they're rich and they can do it. So that's a lot of resource consumption. So improving the quality of life, even though that's what we want to happen for all people, that increase of quality of life also increases the environmental degradation. All right, so unless the individuals live sustainably, you have to be careful about your resource consumption, no matter what economic bracket you're in. All right, so the higher resource consumption, the more you take from the earth, it contributes to air pollution, water pollution from the factories that are making all that stuff for you, motor vehicles who are bringing that stuff to the store for you to buy, land degradation from mining and raw materials. I mean, they got to get the materials somewhere. And if think about supply and demand, if you are a computer company, all right, that's where we get a lot of minerals. I mean, to make the stuff for computers, just as an example, if you're a computer company, you want to sell as many computers as possible. And if all of those rich people are buying a computer for everybody in their house, okay, that's a lot of mining and stuff to get that handled. All right, so the other downside of affluence is that it enables them to obtain purchases almost anywhere in the world without seeing the harmful effects of their lifestyles, because um, there are, and again, I wish I'd been able to put pictures in here for you, but the they're in our worksheets. But the whole idea of being rich and getting all of this stuff, you don't actually pay attention to where this stuff is coming from and what happens to it once you chunk it. There are mountains and mountains and mountains, still using the computer example, mountains of like dead computer pieces. And you can't really, they don't really degrade really well, or certainly not really fast. And as fast as people go through their computers and go get more and go get more and go get more, these mountains build up. And you know, it's huge. But if we're careful, this is where the affluence, the people who have the money, who have the social status, where they can actually help. Affluence can allow for widespread and better education and help people, lead people to become more concerned about environmental quality. If you are careful, you can avoid that trap of the overconsumption. Affluence also makes more money available for the developing technologies. We can pay for and fund the study to get more green technologies, all right, to reduce the pollution, find ways to reduce environmental degradation and waste. We can afford to fund those studies and then um, find other ways for us to benefit our environment. So the affluence can be helpful if you're careful. So this is the uh, positive impacts overview: better education, scientific research, technological solutions resulting in improvement in environmental quality, safe drinking water, more abundant food supplies. This is where we're trying to help the people in poverty. So the people, and I say we, I know that most of us here within our school, we are all still poverty level. I'm still poverty level. But when you compare what Americans have to what other countries have, even the poor of us look like kings. All right. So this is what I'm talking about when I say we. Even the poorest of us look like kings compared to some of these other countries. So we can help with the technological solutions to get safe drinking water to everybody, more abundant food supplies to everybody. Okay. And the the affluence also has led to less um, infectious diseases, healthier lives, longer lifespans, and we're actually trying to save some of the extinct animals. We're saving a few. Every once in a while, there's a good report. But moving on to poverty and how poverty is one of, there were five, remember, things that um, caused and continued the environmental problems. Poverty is one of the main ones. It's a condition where you don't have enough money to fulfill the basic food, water, shelter, health. We know what poverty is. Okay, most of us are in there. Okay, but according to the World Bank, 3 in 10 people, or 2.1 billion people, get less than $3, live on less than $3 a day. So if you add that up to a month, that's $90 a month or so. Okay, so imagine your paycheck, your whole family's paycheck, added to only $90 a month. If you had everybody working and you still only got $90 a month, that's the kind of poverty I'm talking about. Okay, I'm not talking about American poverty. Yes, a lot of us are suffering. I'm talking about this extreme stuff. The whole family for a month gets only $90. And even then, there's still even more of them, of that, of those people. There's 2.1 people that get less than $90 a month. From them, nearly 900 million of those guys get less than $1.90 a day. So that's even less than $60 a month. And they're trying to live their whole family on $60 a month. That's serious stuff. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. And so in the U.S., we don't realize we know poverty, but we don't know that kind of poverty. All right. So, but it is decreasing. And my screen's in front of the numbers, but you guys have them. It is decreasing. All right. So we are, even worldwide, it is decreasing, and that has a lot to do with global economy, more computers being able to spread more places, and more people being aware of this kind of stuff. So it is decreasing. So that is a good thing. It causes a number of harmful environmental health effects. Again, the daily lives of these poorest people, they center on just getting food and water and fuel for cooking and, just trying to survive. They are too desperate just on their survival to worry anything about long-term sustainability. They don't care if the earth is there for their grandchildren. They need to feed the babies that are crying right now. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. They're too desperate. All right, so collectively, they might be forced to cut down forests. There's a, who was it? I think it's Boozman, who has a study where um, they have the border of one of the countries in Africa um, is this country in Africa has a safari park, okay, that is very well fenced. All right, the country that butts up right against it has a lot of starving people. All right, and so if you take an overview of like the Google Maps, the world maps, there is a really sharp line where that safari park butts up against the border of that country. Trees, lush looking, beautiful. All right, And right next to it, dust. Nothing but dust. All right, that has nothing to do with the climate. That has to do with these people have chopped down every single tree that they could possibly have just to get fuel for cook fires. They don't have electricity. The only way to cook anything is with a fire. They have cut down every single tree they have. And can you imagine the damage that that has done to that country? And you can see it right there in Google Maps. This side of the line where this country is, lush, green, beautiful. This side, dead as dust. And what's happening is the people are trying to sneak across the fences to cut down more because they're starving. Okay, they're so poor that they need, when they do have food, they have to be able to cook it. All right, so that is, poverty is one of the main problems. If we could handle that, most of the other problems are related to it. So the environmental degradation, once you've torn up your land so badly, then you start to have health effects on the poor people. Okay, the life-threatening malnutrition, you've seen those horrible pictures of the babies who are starving. It's a lack of protein and other nutrients needed for good health, and that's because of the environmental degradation. If you have cut down every one of your trees, there's nowhere for animals to live. Think about that. Think about the implications. If they have cut down every one of their trees for cook fires, that means there's no place for any animals to live that they might could get meat from. Put that together for a second. They've ruined every single possible habitat for them to get more food from. And once you've done that, also the trees, this last bullet here, the limited access to adequate sanitation and clean drinking water, the plants and trees filter our water for us. If they have cut down all their trees, there's no water filtration. They're going to start to get really, really sick. Most of them don't have any bathroom at all. All right. And so what they wind up doing is, peeing and pooing in the local rivers, or washing pee and poo, and then the water they're trying to drink is disgusting. All right, that all has, and it's not just them; it's their animals as well. If they're lucky enough to have animals. So all of this together, it's all one big tangled mess. So then, according to the World Health Organization, the air pollution also is threatening most of those people because um, when those countries can get factories built, they're happy enough just to have the factories so that they can have the resources, so that they can have jobs for their people, so that they might possibly have an export to the other countries to get some money. They're happy enough just to have the factories so they don't spend too much care about filtering the coal and the gross out of the factory pipes. China is only just recently started filtering their coal factories. And as big as China is, as many as factories as they probably got, the air in China was horrendous. Okay. This outdoor air pollution causes more than 1 million deaths in China yearly because, like I said, they've only just recently gotten strong enough economically to give a crap whether or not their factories were clean. At first, they just wanted to get the global standing. They just wanted to get their people wealthy. They just wanted to be able to have some stuff for export so that they could have some money coming in. And at first, they didn't care what the factories were putting out because they were just trying to get it done. And now we have 1 million people dying per year in China because of the smoke. All right. And so with that happening, they're only just now beginning to tone that back down. Outdoor pollution has a lot to do with killing a lot of people. All right, even the smoke from open fires and stoves. So the overview of poverty. Okay, harmful effects. The short-term requirements for survival can lead to degraded forests, topsoils, grasslands, fisheries, wildlife populations. And again, it's the trees and the habitats that the trees provide. The animals can't live there if there's no trees. The trees can't clean the water for you if they've been cut down. So that leads to the health effects. Okay, the malnutrition, which is the malnutrition and the limited access to sanitation and clean water, and then both indoor and outdoor pollution. All right, now the third, I think we're on the third one, the third of the five, is that the prices of goods and services rarely include their harmful environmental health effects. We know the basic cause of environmental problem has to do with how the marketplace goods and services, how the marketplace prices goods and services. What that means, we know that there are the big giant factory companies who are giving us um, chicken breasts. You think about how much chicken people buy at just any general Saturday. Okay, just any general Saturday. You know, when everybody's doing their grocery shopping. Think about how many of those people buy a bag or two of chicken, because I buy those cheap bags, okay? 'Cause I get the cheapest kind of those stuff they can get. Just think of those cheap bags of chicken or the just chicken in general. How much chicken does, say, this particular Walmart sell on a Saturday? And then all of the Walmarts in Memphis sell on a Saturday. And then all the stores in Memphis sell on a Saturday. Think about all of that chicken. Just chicken. I mean, I'm not even talking about pork or beef. Just chicken. That's a lot of chicken. All right. And as long as the consumers like us keep asking for it, the producers, the farmers, are going to keep trying to get it at that level so they can keep making that money. And what that has led to are these big giant factory farms. All right, because that's a lot that we're asking for. But these big giant factory farms are incredibly disgusting for the environment. Food Inc., INC. If you have any thought as to these giant factory farms and the mess, especially our vegan people, our vegan and vegetarian folks, if you want some ammunition to get more people in your ballpark, take a look at the movie Food Inc. If we get to the food chapter, we'll be playing it. But oh my God. And the amount of mess that they create in the environment. Think about butchering all those chickens. Again, I'm not even talking about pork and beef, just chickens. All right. Think about all the blood and the feathers and the bones. That's a lot of trash and gross, the gizzards and the guts to come out of that chicken. It's got to go somewhere. Ew. Okay, so and that's just chickens. Can you imagine the big bunch of ew that's going to come out of a pig when you butcher it, or a cow? How much gross? I mean, hooves and fur. Oh, I'm going to be sick. I mean, I'm not a vegetarian. I eat my meat, but I don't like to think about it. A lot of us don't like to think about it. So what happens? This is called full cost pricing. Okay, I'm trying not to puke. Okay, so full cost pricing means these big companies are creating so much mess that they need to clean up. So the price of how much it will cost to clean up needs to be included in the price for them to sell their stuff. Now, I don't like the idea of my chicken costing more, or my beef or my pork, but it's the right thing to do. They need to clean up the environment, and this cost to clean up the environment needs to be put into the price of packaging. And then, when none of us will buy their crap because it's gotten too expensive, we'll go buy the organic farmers. The organic farmers are doing it right, but right now it costs too much a lot of times to buy the organic. But usually they are doing it right. That's how they get the label that lets them say organic. They're not creating that environmental mess. They're not doing that kind of garbage. And if they are doing any garbage, the price is already included so that they can keep their place clean and therefore the world stays clean. This is what we're talking about, full cost pricing. So the companies using the resources, can you see my mouse? I think you can. The companies using the resources provide the goods that are generally then not required to pay for the harmful environmental cost. The timber companies is the example they use, so nobody has to throw up. With me using the meat, it just, okay, the timber companies, they pay the cost of clearing the forest, but they don't pay for the environmental degradation and the loss of wildlife habitat. Once you've cut down a forest, especially if you're clear cutting, you've lost the topsoil, the trees can't grow back, all those habitats are gone. They pay for clear cutting the forest, but they don't pay for the environmental loss. All right, and so all of that stuff, when you clear cut a forest, you're going to have soil erosion, less humidity, meaning the trees aren't cleaning your water. They're not giving us oxygen that we need, which means there's even more carbon dioxide in the air heating up the world. That stuff is not included in the price when you clear cut the lumber. All right, so the goal of the company is to maximize their profit. So they're going to be sneaky about this. Even if we were to put this in place, they're going to try to find loopholes because their job is to make money. Okay, the companies aren't inclined to add the environmental costs voluntarily. They're going to have to be made to do this. All right, so that because the prices of goods and services don't include the harmful costs, the consumers and decision makers have no effective way to evaluate the harmful effects. I don't actually know how much it would cost for the chicken people to clean up their mess. And therefore, I don't know how much the price should go up, but there are people who do. If they can make the chicken farmers and everybody else agree to pay those, then we can figure out the cost and it can get handled. So, but the trouble is that these companies are so big that they got the government in their back pockets. And again, if you watch Food Inc., you'll see what I'm talking about. It's shameful, so shameful what they do in the back rooms of government and big companies. It's so shameful. All right, so the government are going to give these companies subsidies. Now, subsidies by themselves are not always bad, okay? Because states can like lend money without interest to learn new business in the areas. Cities might exempt businesses from paying property taxes for a couple of years to help build the city. And this helps create jobs and stimulate economies. So there are good things about subsidies. However, a lot of them, there's a lot of tricks in there. There's a lot of loopholes where the big money people, the big companies continue to do their bad stuff. Okay, there's a lot of loopholes with subsidies. So the environmentally harmful subsidies are going to encourage the depletion. For example, um, you can, if you have a company who's supposed to be getting pollution equipment, and you don't make them pay their taxes on it, there's nothing to help clean the pollution. Okay. So if people could live more sustainably and increase the beneficial impact, if those health costs of good services were included in the market, like I said, if we could make the bad companies pay for their environmental damage, their price will go up so much that the organics will now start to be more nice, more, I don't know, we'd start buying the organics more. Now, again, none of us, especially the people in our families, our city, our state, none of us really want to pay any more for our groceries. I don't want to pay more for my chicken, but it's what needs to be done. Okay, so this full cost pricing is a real powerful tool, and it's part of the economic social factors that we did. There's a picture I want that you guys can see if it's possible to have your book open on page 18. All right, so the economic sustainability like this, we can help this get going. I know we don't want to pay extra for our bills, but we also don't want these big companies making all of this money at our expense. That's what needs to happen. These big companies are making money at our expense and at the world's expense. So first is to shift from the harmful government subsidies to more environmentally beneficial. The ones who are doing it right, they're the ones the government should help, right? If the government's going to help anybody, they ought to be helping the ones who are doing it right. And the second is to tax the companies who are making the mess, make them pay so hard for it with taxes and all sorts of stuff. And incomes on wealth. If you are making that much money, you should be contributing some to help the poverty. Duh. If you have all that much money, you should be helping. So putting those things in place is some of the ways that count. You should tax those big companies. If you have any sort of environmental damage associated with your business, you should pay a tax so heavily that you rethink the way you're doing your business. And then the world will be clean. All right, so a lot of the consumers, they have, like, this is again the overview, I believe. They have a lot, they are completely unaware of the damage caused by the consumption due to lack of full cost pricing. A lot, like I said, until I mentioned the chickens, how often did you really think of that? How often did you think of the amount of waste from that much chicken? Most of us are unaware. And the subsidies are often going to increase the environmental degradation because of all of the backdoor politics. So we need to change them. We need to tax that pollution and waste, and we need to shift from the environmentally harmful subsidies to environmentally beneficial. Again, if you can prove that you are doing right by the environment, you should be the only one allowed to have subsidies, not the bad guys. All right, and that brings us to the fifth one, I believe, where people are becoming increasingly isolated from nature. We did a short worksheet on it at the beginning of the chapter, but today more than half the world's people live in urban areas. And the shift from rural, which means country, to urban, which means city, from rural to urban living is continuing at a rapid pace. Well, it's obviously, I mean, that's where the jobs are. You go to the city. I mean, if you live in the country, yeah, you can work on your parents' farm, all right, and yes, that's a very, I mean, I would kill to be able to do that. But think about it. The only income comes from the farm work. So everybody as a whole makes money off the farm. If you don't have your own job, you don't have your own money. So a lot of the young people who were initially raised in farming environments left the farms to go get their own jobs in the city. And so the urban environments are increasing and getting huger and huger. So the use of the cell phones and computers and electronic devices, not only since we all live in the cities, and we all have all of these devices, nobody is talking to each other anymore. Nobody is really interacting with each other or with nature. All right. Why go outside in the heat and the yuck when I can sit on my computer and look at pictures of pretty forests? Right? Think about it. I'm one of the worst ones. Right? I was raised in the mountains where it was beautiful and trees everywhere, and I can't bring myself to come out into Memphis heat. I am completely away from nature. So a lot of people are that way. We use our cell phones and our computers and our electronic devices to give us a picture of the world we want to see, but we don't ever actually go out into it. So we're beginning to come up with this idea that it's called nature deficit disorder. All right. Um, Something about being out in nature, and it may be something primal from when we were still, I mean, way back in evolution, that we were still living in trees or living in forests, or humans, well, like the early humans when we were chasing animals, buffaloes and mammoths. Way back then, we were part of nature. And it may be that pulling us away from it does something to our physiology. We have stress, anxiety, depression, all sorts of problems like that. And it has a lot to do with the fact that if we were able to get back out in nature, a lot of those things would go away. Children and adults both can benefit from outdoor activities. You know, everybody always says, send the kids out in the backyard and let them play. Well, of course, kids feel better when they play outside, but the adults also, and even like quasi adults like you, like almost adults, everybody can get benefits from the outdoor activities. Experience nature will lead to better health, reduce stress, better mental abilities, and imagination and creativity. All of those things will increase, and you can tell when you see people who live off grid, when you watch the TV shows of people who are living off grid, you know, or living more closely to nature, they're happier. They just are, than the rest of us who sit on our couches and look at our phone all day. They really, really are. It can provide a sense of wonder and connection to life on Earth. And I know that sounds hokey pokey. I know that sounds goofy, but it's a real thing. Okay, the benefits of interacting with nature is what inspired that guy on our worksheet that we did already. So it's amazing that what nature can do for us. So with our, so here's the overview of the nature. More than half the world's population lives in urban areas. The technology is adding to our isolation. It has created what's called nature deficit disorder. The symptoms are stress, anxiety, depression. It's a real thing. All right, and the benefits of getting outdoors, of course, is the exercise, but also improved health and brain function, And the sense of wonder, although that sounds cheesy, that's a real thing. It really, really makes a difference. Even though it sounds cheesy, it really makes a difference. All right. Now, when it comes time, this I guess is the last one, or the summary of the whole of the five. When it comes time to making decisions about the environment, a lot of it depends on that individual person's perspective, what they think, what they feel, their own opinion of how nature and the environmental problems um, work. And therefore, getting these different ideas together, the different perspectives, have to find a way to link together in order for us to work together. The differences arise mostly because of varying environmental worldviews. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about, the different worldviews that we have to find a way to gel together in order to find solutions. Okay, so your environmental worldview is your set of assumptions and values concerning the natural world and what you imagine your role in the world should be. Environmental ethics is a big study about what's right or wrong and how these um, worldviews of the environment will provide us tools to work together. And again, the bottom of my screen is cut off, so this last part gets kind of crazy. So some of the important, there's some questions here for you to ask, and you've got them on your paper. But how you answer these questions will determine, will find a way to figure out which one of the worldviews is most important to you. Like, why should people care about the environment? Are humans the most important species, or are they just another one of the millions? All right, do people have an obligation to see that their activities don't cause the extinctions of others? And if they do have an obligation, should we protect all of them or only some? Like, there's some really weird and ugly animals, gross, or worse, mosquitoes. I would have a really hard time if mosquitoes became endangered. I would have a really hard time saying, "Oh, that's so bad," and not just having a party. So should we save all of the animals or just some? So a lot of that has to changes how your worldview goes. And should every person be entitled to equal protection from the environmental hazards? And this isn't without a question. This is central to the ethic, political, environmental justice. Everybody, regardless of how much money or how poor or what your country is, like, think about the countries who are doing bad crap, all right? As far as the American worldview, the ones who treat the women so poorly, or the ones who are so angry to the US that they want to throw bombs at us all the time, or does every person in the world, is every person entitled to the same protection? All right, even if they're mean. That's one of the things we should try. Should individuals as a whole and a society seek to live more sustainably? And if so, how? Should everybody try to live more sustainably? I mean, you can't tell somebody else how to live, but should you? That's one of the questions here. Oh, there's like 20 questions. All right, so once you've answered these questions, okay, the set of assumptions and values reflecting how you think the world works and what the role should be, that is what your environmental worldview is. And these are a copy of a couple of the other questions. So once you've answered these questions, the way you answer them, like the ethical environmentalists will help you decide. I mean, this is the whole thing that they do. They will help decide which one of the three categories you fit best in. That's human-centered worldview, life-centered worldview, and earth-centered worldview. All right, and so we're going to go over the details of those, but which one you are determines how, and neither one is wrong necessarily. Each one of those three is going to determine how you face environmental problems and how you look for a solution and the different types of solutions. So what we try to do is try to gel the three together, but we have to know what they are first. So human-centered worldview sees the world as a support system for human life. We think that we're the most important, and so that the world is there to serve us, all right? But when we consider that, within that, you have the ones who are planetary management worldview. Because the world serves us, we need to manage it well, or stewardship level. Okay, so we need to take care of it so that it can continue to serve us. So both parts of both planetary and stewardship worldview within human-centered. Okay, do you see what I said? Planetary and stewardship are two breakdowns of human-centered worldview. Both of those hold that humans are separate from and in charge of nature, and that society should manage the earth to benefit humans. Okay, so the stewardship level adds that it's our responsibility to take care of it for generations to come. All right, now again, there's nothing innately wrong with thinking the humans are the best, the humans are the top, and the world is there for us. But with that comes the idea that we should manage it and care for it so that it continues to serve us for generations to come. All right, again, that's not my particular view, but it doesn't matter. Everybody's view is valid. All right, life-centered view is the second one. According to the life-centered worldview, all species in life have a value in fulfilling their particular role within the biosphere, regardless of their potential or the actual use to society. So this is where we get to, like, mosquitoes aren't really useful to me, but they have their own value of some sort. Most of the individuals with the life-centered worldview believe that society has an ethical responsibility to not do any more damage than what we have because of our human activities. We have the responsibility because every life on earth is valuable, plant and animal, and bugs, and microbes. Every life on earth has its own value, and therefore we should meld into that value without causing any damage. It's not fair to us because their lives are just as important as ours. All right, the third one is the earth-centered worldview. And that maintains that people are part of and dependent on nature. It maintains the earth capital exists for all species, not just us. This is the one I like the best, but everybody's entitled to their own. The earth, all of the things that the earth gives us, the resources, the cleaning the water. Remember we talked about the natural services, the environmental services, the cleaning the water, the providing oxygen, all of that stuff. It's not just for us, it's for everybody. And so according to this view, economic success and long-term survival of cultures and species depends on how life on Earth is sustained itself for billions of years. Earth did fine without us. Earth was doing just fine without us, and it should be able to continue to do just fine with us. Okay, we are part of it. We are part of the whole Earth. And lessons from nature should show us how to think and act. All right, so the three main worldviews are human-centered, where the earth is there to support humans. Okay, it is there for us. It is there to give us what we need. We are the top of the world, and there's a reason. So the earth is there for us. And within that is divided two parts of the human-centered. Is planetary, meaning save the world because we need it, and stewardship, save the world for us and our grandkids. Okay, that's what human-centered is. Okay, life-centered. All species are valuable, even if, and they should all be protected from extinction, even stuff like mosquitoes and slime moths and stuff that we don't, the yucky stuff. Everything on Earth has a value and should be protected from extinction. Earth-centered is the third one. Humans are part of and dependent on the whole Earth. We should live as one with the Earth, and we should look to nature to find ways to think and create and solve our problems. All right, so it doesn't matter which one of these three you are, they all have reason to protect and care for the earth, regardless of what that reason is. And so we can use those three different perspectives to come up with the answers to the problems that society faces of environmental degradation and all of those things. We use those, regardless of what worldview you have, we should be able to come up with some answers to these problems. All right, so that is the end of lesson 3, and I'll see you guys again when it's time for 4.